right, welcome back to 1010's podcast. We are still live at Gingerman Raceway for Gridlife Midwest 2016, and we are here with Mr. Alan Skillicorn from Skillicorn Racing. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me, guys. Things are doing really well, having a lot of fun.
So you have the car here today that caught Robbie's eye. You have a very beautiful Corvette C6, highly modified. Tell us a little bit about that car. I know you're not racing it today because things didn't go exactly as planned, but tell us a little bit about that car, and then we'll talk about the car that you actually are racing today.
Sure. I like to call it a C6R, partially because of the fact that it's got the World Challenge ACP bodywork on it. So basically, it's just your standard old Corvette, but it is caged. It's got all the safety equipment. It's got Moton shocks and stuff like that. But it also has a rip-roaring, snorty LS7 that was built by K-Tech. So it's probably got over 700 horsepower crank. It's 605 horsepower at the wheels. And give you an idea of the snorty nature of it, 2 weeks ago. I've also, the podcast has been recorded, June 11th. As of today, I think I've had the car for 26 or 27 days.
Okay, so now. Wow.
And 2 weeks ago, I was at VIR Ultimate Track Car Challenge. And for the last session today, I was pulling out on the track, first gear, second gear, just idling along. And I shift to third, maybe only going about 35 miles an hour, and I just roll on the throttle. Was not full throttle, and it was like, whoom! Both rear tires bust loose, car goes sideways, doing 35 miles an hour in third gear, and it wasn't like I'm on rock hard tires either. I mean, they were cold. I was just rolling on the track, but they're also the softest slicks that Michelin offers.
And they're a 335?
So the original owner of the car. So I didn't build the car. I bought it. And
it's the easy way to do it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's nothing, and it's a cheap way to go. I mean, he probably took a $70,000 hit on everything that he spent on that car. I made some couple minor changes for the way I like to drive it, and I was going to actually test a whole bunch today, or this weekend at least, because I was going to try to get a little more forward grip out of it. But he's actually got square tires around it. So it's got 305, a little bit shorter 18-inch slicks, even though it's got 11-inch wide wheels in the front and 13 in the rear. So it looks a little like, Stance Nation on the back.
Yeah, I remember noticing that when we would look at it.
And I have a feeling he liked that because of the ride height situation. And they're also, for whatever reason, there's not a lot of, we cut the fenders a couple days ago so we could fit the big 345 Hoosiers, because we put the 345 Hoosiers on just to test them out that weekend, and they rubbed. So we're still going to work out that thing. I'm not sure why he was running the same, because it feels like the car needs a little more rear tire. So when we get it back together, we'll probably test out wider tires. A lot of it might have been the height of the tire. And we'll see what we can do about that.
So what prevented you from running it this weekend?
Well, we're gonna get to why I'm not testing it.
Yeah.
And why I'm not beating up on these Evos that are going so fast, right?
Yeah.
So the car is a little new to me, and I'm still figuring out what needs to be looked at and checked out. So this, Friday morning, I'm going out for a session of the day, and we put the good tires on. We were going to try to run a flyer, and then we were going to put some junk tires on, then just kind of test things. Just, don't have to worry about heat cycles and things like that. So put everything together, and, we actually had a minor braking issue. The pedal was a little long at VIR, and it wasn't very confidence-inspiring coming down those 165-mile-an-hour straightaways.
Yeah, that's a long front straight.
So,
that'd be scary.
We changed all the brake lines and did a little bit of testing here and there, and I think we had something that might have worked. I don't think it was perfect. I think maybe the master cylinder might be sized a little off, but whatever. We got it pretty darn close. So I'm pulling it, and it's got a very light clutch, a very light flywheel. So I'm going through the paddock, and it goes like that. And then it felt like the clutch wasn't engaging really well. And I kind of just thought, it's just too hot. The clutch is a little too hot from slipping it so much. Because I was slipping a lot trying to drive through the paddock. And as soon as I get on the track, again, it felt a little weird. But I'm like, okay, once I get it, up to speed, I'm sure it's going to be fine, right? So I go into third, felt great. Go to shift to fourth, wouldn't engage fourth gear. I'm just in neutral. And I had a real hard time getting it in any gears. And So I basically rolled around the track, and then there's a hill on the back straight here at Gingerman that I couldn't roll anymore. So I was able to find third gear again. I was accelerating up the hill, and then bang. So it appears that I think what happened is a trans mount failed. The trans moved enough and busted drive shaft, shattered.
Oh, yeah.
Shattered a bunch of
things happened after that.
Yeah. So, and ironically, I probably should have been towed in, and I could have bolted everything together, and we would be having a much different conversation after I broke a minute 30 today than we are right now. But that's life. Now, last year I had a sports racer here, and I put scrub tires on it, and of course I spun in the first corner and stalled it in the grass and all that, and poor Adam Jabay had to tow me around, and I did not want to do that the first lap of the first session 2 years in a row. So my stubbornness made it so that I had to drive it back to the pits, which I almost made it, but c'est la vie. I'll have to be doing a lot of repairs and spending a lot of hard-earned money, and maybe having to sell a car that I don't use very much to pay for it all.
Well,
that's part of racing, though. Yeah. It's it seems to be inevitable. So instead of the Corvette, you're running a what I think is a very rare car. I don't know that I've ever seen a yellow. It's a yellow BMW Z3M. Correct? It's a full M car.
M Coupe.
M Coupe.
And there's a distinction. There's roadsters are for hairdressers, and coupes are cool.
I like the coupe, and I've never seen one in that yellow color before. Have you seen one, Adam?
I don't think I've seen one in the yellow.
It seems like all the ones that I see are black.
Yeah, they're almost all black.
So the kicker to that car is that it's not stock either. It has a supercharger on it as well. Have you done any dyno pulse with that or anything? Do you know what that thing makes?
So give you a little more. It's an S52. They made it also the S52, which is like the 96 to 99 BMW M3 motor. So 240 horsepower, rated at probably a little more than that because it was not a bad motor. And then in 2001, so in 99 and 2000 they had the S52, 3.2 liters and such. And then in 2001 and in 2002 is also super rare. They came with the S54, which is they actually downrated the 315 horsepower instead of 240. So this is originally the 240 one, but it's torquier and it also had a little shorter gearing. So if out of the street, it probably feels just as good. So this has got the torquier one, and it has a VF supercharger on it. So it's very kind of a torque monster. It's 279 to the wheels, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's real torquey, and short gearing helps.
I've driven the non-M version of that, and even that car was quite torquey. I know that's not even the same motor, but I can only imagine that's probably still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that if it was a 3-liter, it was probably the N54.
Yeah, I think so.
So there's another podcast that talks about BMWs. We could probably get that whole thing. And I don't know if we're allowed to talk about their podcasts.
Oh, yeah. We've done it before.
The Driving While Awesome guys talk about BMWs, E30, E36.
Yeah, and one of them's got a spec E30 that they...
Or did they? Yeah, I listened to that one too.
At least one of them does. So.
There's a lot of good car podcasts, and I listen to you guys too. So
we appreciate that.
I listened to the you guys did like a Lotus one recently, and I remember wasn't there like someone that had
we did a Formula car.
That guy who had the original Lotus, right?
No, I don't think that was somebody else.
Did he have original? Okay.
Oh, DWA did one with a guy that had a Super Set.
Well, you guys talk about Miatas a lot, and you talked about electric Miatas.
We did the electric Miata episode. Yep.
I enjoyed. I even went to their website and checked them out.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
You gave us one of the most humbling things we've ever had today because we walked up to you and you're like, you're the guys from 10 Tenths. I listened to you.
Yeah, that was kind of like when we first started this. I even said to them, someday I can't wait for the chance when someone goes, hey, I know you guys. We listen to you. Somebody that we didn't already know.
Well, so you guys have arrived.
You fulfilled a dream for us.
Yeah. It happened too. You posted on Instagram that we had like one shirt left, and that dude found us on Instagram and came and bought that shirt. So we've already talked about that.
T-shirts.
Oh, really? Oh, so we're done now for shirts. Yep. We need to get some more, but
you should get some deposits first.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we had to do at the first run.
Yeah, because it's not worth
everyone paid it up front first.
Yeah, we just got a few extra because we had to hit a certain number limit. So. But so how'd the sessions in the BMW go?
Well, it was really hot today, so I'm on Bridgestone. Basically, So I've only autocrossed the car once, but it's basically kind of set up to autocross some. So
I think you're off mic just a tiny bit.
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry
about that. Yep.
I'll keep it in a consistent spot.
There we go.
So the Bridgestones, they can get a little warm, but I didn't feel very greasy, but I could tell the times weren't quite there. So that it was your first lap that really mattered in the time attack. But I'm used to. This format I've done before. So I've actually got 2 NASA time trial national championships, and the same thing. It was your first flyer that mattered. Now, typically with NASA and at the bigger events, there'd be so much traffic. If you didn't get it done in your first lap, you had traffic. So it didn't really matter if the tires got too hot or not. You just had to get it done. So here. They've done a really awesome job knowing that in time attack we only need 4 or 5 laps. Because if you can't get it done there, it doesn't matter. So what they do is they gave us a full hour, and they had like 4 run groups within the entire time attack. So we're getting some traffic, but not real bad.
Yeah, it seems like the traffic is very reasonable here.
Yeah, and the drivers seemed fairly courteous. I don't think there was anybody, trying to block people or being dicks out there. It seemed like a very well-run event from the organizers and the drivers.
Yeah,
so.
And if the listeners out there want to try out Gridlife, because they're actually having a few other events, they're going to have another event in Joliet at Autobahn. I believe at the end of the year they're going to have one at Blackhawk Farms out in like near Rockford, Illinois, but also Road Atlanta. It's going to be middle of summer, so it's going to be hot.
It's going to be super hot.
But the Gridlife guys seem to do a really good job with the track activities. This, and on Facebook, there was something that happened here that kind of ticked me off, but I mentioned to people that it's not unlike Pirelli World Challenge. It's not unlike Continental Tire. These guys are balancing the needs of vendors and the needs for racers, and this is actually a format that most track organizations are going to have to take somewhat in the future. And I'm not talking about concerts and stuff, but a bigger draw. There has to be something bigger, whereas a lot of clubs, like, they would never allow drifters on the track.
Yeah.
They go intermingle between sessions because we can't have that. But unfortunately for our hobby to have a future, because it's very expensive, we need a draw. We need sponsors. We need spectators. And these guys at Gridlife have figured that out. And the paddock is packed with people.
So many people.
Some of that's not, some of that's not desirable from, usually at some events, you get spread out all the room you want, right? Mm-hmm. And that's tough for some of us, regular racers that are used to that. But this is the future of racing. If it's going to make sense financially, we're going to have to find a way, because insurance costs are so high.
Oh, yeah.
Track rental costs are so high. It's hard to find corner workers nowadays. There's a club called Midwestern Council of Sports Car Clubs, and they're always saying, we need workers. And it's a great organization with great workers, but they have a hard time getting enough corner workers. And they refuse to pay for corner workers. And I understand that we could talk about the concept of that, but it's always better to have volunteers that care and are passionate versus, some of them, today I'm waving at people in the last session, and there's some guys that, they'd rather pick their nose or something. They're not enthusiasts. They're just here earning $10 an hour. And there's a difference to that, especially when, seconds matter or your car burning down.
Yeah,
or getting hurt. I'm not even talking about someone getting hurt, but something like your car is about to catch on fire. A passionate corner worker will be sprinting to your car with that fire bottle.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys, they'll probably have to finish their text. There is a difference.
A good way to be.
There's a difference to that.
Yeah.
And SCCA has great workers. Midwestern Council has great workers. If you're going to fault, and I like NASA, but you're going to fault them that they pay for corner workers, so you get the normal track day guys. So when you have people in white suits that do this all the time for free, you get passionate people. When you pay people, you don't get those passionate.
Yeah, that was the bizarre thing from your experience at Iowa Speedway when you went to that.
Robbie and I both
what was that event?
We went to the DMVR's club event last year at Iowa Speedway, and that's the first time we'd ever been to a club event. And we did corner working, and we got paired off. At least I got paired off with some guys, and one of them's from St. Louis, and neither one of them owned a car that they race. They just they travel all over the Midwest to all these different SCCA events, and they corner work. And that was a very strange concept.
And we couldn't do it without them.
But I never thought of it the way that you just put it. That that someone who's there voluntarily is going to be much more interested in what's going on out there. That's a very interesting point of view.
There are some nuances and safety-related things that they pick up on, which is invaluable, and it's something that we should appreciate.
Those guys were great. It was super fun. They were super friendly, and I would encourage anybody in our solo region, and I have, to go and corner work at club events because it's a lot of fun. It was not a bad day. They gave us a free shirt. They gave us free lunch. Robbie and I got to ride in the pace car with the flag out the window. It was a great day. We had a lot of fun.
It was super educational for me because I'd never really done track stuff. So like they're explaining to me all the flags, what they mean, all the cues on the mic, what I need to be saying, how I need to be doing everything. So it's just kind of, for someone that wants to get into that type of stuff, it was really educational for me to see what everything means, how everything's run. And then now if I ever try to get on track, I have a better understanding.
And now you have an idea of the road race classes and stuff and SOM and, you know that old British cars, usually break and things like
Catch
that.
on fire, burn to the ground, etc.
And, if people want to, actually, if you want to corner work and get paid, motorcycle race groups, I think they pay $75 a day. Maybe it's gone up to 100 now. So I remember a few years ago, my wife and I have a little business on the side, and we hit some really hard times. And financially we're okay, but if this continues, things will get. So I remember I can go corner work for a weekend. I made $150. I slept in my truck.
Not a bad way to make some money.
And that. Well, it's a lot of work. I mean, you're there from really crazy early in the morning until late at night. I mean, it's a long day. It's dollar for dollar. It's probably not a great way.
But if it's something you enjoy, and you and you end up with a little bit of money in your pocket at the end of the day, it's not a bad day.
Yeah, and you learn a lot there too. And so any of your listeners, and hey, they'll train you for free.
Yeah.
And I think the group I did it was CCS, and I think the first day you do it for free, don't get paid. Then after that, you get paid.
So was that actual wheel-to-wheel racing?
Yeah, that's wheel-to-wheel motorcycle road racing.
Because I have very little interest in being on a motorcycle for whatever reason. They're just not. But
you want to see them throw it down, huh?
But I think probably my favorite racing series to watch on TV at least is MotoGP. Because those guys, they'll pass each other 2 or 3 times in a corner.
It's the best racing.
It's crazy. So I think corner working for a motorcycle race would be a riot.
And there are some. I mean, they're not going to be as good as Lorenzo and Rossi and those guys. But there are some guys that are. So I road raced motorcycles for a few years, and it's ironic. There's a few guys that I was friends with, did some track days with, that took the same. We had our first road race week because I did track days too, but then I road raced, and I remember a few of us. I was in the 600 class, which is like the shredded meat class they would call it, because that would be the most carnage. And there's a few guys that ended up in AMA that I raced with. There was a first weekend, and some of these guys I knew, and actually I kind of thought they were crazy on the street. I'm like, these guys are nuts. And I remember when they went flying by me the corner one, and they were gone, and I could never catch up with them again. But those were good times. I took all my car knowledge and skills, and I don't think I'm very good on a bike, but I knew exactly where to put the bike. And I knew the line, and I understood all these concepts. I just was never as, they weight pegs and do funny things with their body to get grip. I couldn't do all that, but I knew the physics of it, and I knew where to put the bike, so I could run mid-pack. So
did you watch any of the Isle of Man stuff that went on?
Well, ironically, Skillicorn is a Manx name. So my great-grandfather was from Douglas, Isle of Man, and I want to go back, and I would love to do the TT race, but I'm not sure how to make that happen. So, June they do the pro TT race, and then they do an amateur TT race in August or September.
I didn't know that.
And you still need to have a significant road racing experience or a pro license to do it.
Lots of people die there. I'm sure they don't let Joe Blow onto the...
Well, I mean, they died, but... No, yeah. I'm sure they take safety. But it's a big boy event. And I wouldn't go on a big boy bike. I mean, I got either a vintage bike or a motard or something. If I had 50 horsepower,
that would be plenty.
I'd probably throttle stop that, The idea of having like a leader bike or even a 600 bike over
man.
undulations and jumps and landing next to walls.
Did you watch any of those videos?
I watch it every
Have you
year.
seen
I don't
that stuff,
watch
Robbie?
all of
Not
it,
really.
but
It's terrifying.
they're going through towns and there's stone walls on both sides of the road, and the road's only two
and
lanes
there are
wide.
guys who rub an elbow, and sometimes they rub a little too much elbow, and
Clip a wall.
yeah, it does happen.
And then you'll see them come over a crest in a town with the brick walls on the side. They'll come over a crest, and you'll see the bike go light, and the bike will slide across the pavement. And then as the bike the gravity catches up to him, he'll catch grip, and then he'll take off, and you're like,
Well,
there's for certain I would have hit the wall.
Well,
That happens on racetracks too, though. I mean, even Road America, the front straight of Road America, when you go up that hill, when you crest the hill, even on a 600, we've got to weight the front tire. Because if you do a big wheelie on the crest of that hill, at 600, I don't know what you're doing, like 135, 140 miles an hour at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
You keep accelerating farther. If you get air underneath the front of the bike, you can flip it. So you literally weight the front at the crest of that hill.
It's terrifying.
That's just Road America. I'm sure there's other tracks that do more than that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. It's awesome to watch. It's really cool to watch, though. Isle of Man TT stuff, I do really love it. But yeah.
So didn't 3 people die this year, or wasn't it something?
2 or 3. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, absolutely nuts.
That's obviously a tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you really have the Gridlife South Haven record? Is that true?
I think we're really close to it. I don't know if it's broken or not, to be honest.
Jabay told us earlier that you still hold it at today's.
It's got to be
What's the time?
I thought it was like a minute 31.
I think he told us it was like a 29 something.
No, I've never broken a minute and a half. No.
Okay.
What was that in, though?
It was in a Prince DSR.
Okay.
So it was actually a conversion. So we're going back about cars again. That's good.
Yeah.
We can talk about motors.
The
Let's talk about
D-Sports
anything with
Racer
motors. We're not
is
picky.
the designation for years. SCCA actually just changed that to Prototype 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. Yep,
So this
yep.
was an old D-Sports Racer. The car actually started off as a Van Diemen RF 94, I believe, which is an undesirable Formula Continental car. So they took that the space frame chassis of it and most of the suspension, and a guy named Pat Prince, who's been doing racers and things like that for years, somewhere in Illinois, he came up with this Prince conversion. So he made it to a sports racer, put a body on it. So the tires are covered. It's not an open wheeler anymore. Even though you take the body off, it looks just like an open wheel car. And a little bit of tunnels to it, and then a motorcycle drivetrain. So it had a Suzuki GSX-R 1000 drivetrain on it, basically stock compression and stuff. I think it had like nicer rods and stuff just to be more reliable. I didn't rev it over 11 though, but just to keep it safe. Had paddle shifts, which was pretty cool. And so I bought that car like a year and a half ago, and I took it to an autocross. Fortunately, I broke an axle first torn autocross, so that didn't really work out. So last year was basically kind of brought it back out to the track. I think Midwestern Council does these time trials. They call it autocross, but it's a starting stop time trial at Blackhawk. I think I ran that, and just to shake the bugs out. There were probably a couple minor things. I didn't have a lot of brake pads, and since I didn't even know what brakes it had on it, they're really thin. So I'm going through the Pegasus catalog. I can't figure out what brakes are on it. So I was kind of taking it easy. And last summer was like a big hooray for then the first part of summer, because we did Gridlife like the first weekend in June, even though it rained like all weekend. I was able to put on some decent tires. That, they were still got a couple heat cycles in them, so they weren't perfect, but I was able to run that 31 something. Lead, have the fastest time in the event. I had a blast though, I had an absolute blast. I think on Friday I went out one session and on cruddy tires, and then Saturday rained all day, and so I only went out a couple sessions, but still had a lot of fun. And then they did this track battle end of Sunday, so it was like a one lap. So you go out and then you cross the beam, your time started. So you had 9/10 of the track to warm your tires up. You had one lap, and then you cross the beam, and then you pull in. And whoever had the fast, they basically, I think they took the 15 fastest cars or something, and they did that. And I was still able to win that. Andy Smedgard in an Evo got a little closer to me. It was probably a little easier for him to get his tires warm in one lap. than the sports racer with downforce and stuff. But that's an autocrosser at heart, and I grew up autocrossing and still autocross. I actually would rather run an autocross than a track day because I think that just HPDE, it's good, but I'm kind of bored. I'd rather have some competition.
Yeah.
And even if I don't win, I don't have to win, but having the time clicking matters to me. Just running lap after lap, for some reason, doesn't do it for me. So I was able to win that last year in the sports racer. Then either a week or 2 weeks later was the SCCA Chasing the Dragon Hill Climb in North Carolina. So it was a couple miles away from the Tail of the Dragon road.
Yeah.
So it was like Joyce Kilmer Forest, this road up the mountain. And it wasn't quite as tight as Tail of the Dragon. I don't know if your listeners have been to the Tail of the Dragon, but it's the most awesome road, I think, in the United States.
I'm sure anybody who's into cars knows the road you're talking about.
And there's other roads around there, so some people think that the Dragon is too tight. I'm an autocrosser. I like tight technical.
Yeah.
So I think it's like 180 turns and 13 miles.
I don't remember
or
what the
something.
number is, but it's huge.
I think it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and you can do 30 and have a blast. There's a couple straightaways, but if you can go through 30 through all the corners, you're doing pretty darn well. So it's very, very tight. But there's roads around there that are also, a little bit more open and, fun. So the Chasing the Dragon Hill Climb in North Carolina, this absolute blast. So 2 years ago, I did the first time in a B-Mod Legrand car. And one of the reasons I bought that car, because I wanted to do the Ultimate Track Car Challenge, and I wanted to do the hill climb. And I wanted something to autocross. And before I bought that, I actually had no car for a while. So, I grew up on, Hondas, basically. So a lot of Civics and CRXs and things like that. And then I took a bunch of years off. And then, I wanted to do something for me again. And I love autocross, and I love doing some track stuff. I can't quite afford to road race. I did a little Spec Miata, but... I just, it's hard to pay for it all, unfortunately. So I found this niche to have some fun, but did that, let's see, 3 years ago, now the Grand, and next year I came back last year in the Prince and came to win. Had tire warmers, everything.
Oh, man.
And you did win, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we won, set the overall record, like a 114 seconds flat, I think it was. So
you said that car topped out at what now?
So I ran I had an advantage being an autocrosser, hanging out with all the autocross B-Mod guys who use the motorcycle drivetrains in their B-Mod autocross cars and knowing the gearing and stuff that they run. So what I did is I put one of the shortest gear sets I could find, which I think would top out like 118 miles an hour. And I was able to top out a couple times on the way up. And I think I counted off like 23 shifts. So it's on YouTube. So if you look up Skillicorn and Chasing the Dragon, or just Skillicorn Dragon Hill Climb, you'll be able to find it.
I'll go find it. I'll link it.
The funny thing
on
is,
our
it's
Facebook
almost
page.
imperceptible how much I shift. Just the audio quality is. You hear a lot of motor, but it is kind of hard. But especially the bottom half of the mountain is all shifting, and it's a freaking blast.
So that's kind of sequential. That was out of the motorcycle.
Yeah, it had a paddle shift.
Yep.
So all the motorcycles are sequentials. And I did, so when I ran the Legrand in 2014, I ran a little taller gearing, and I'm like, no, I think I want the short gears. And that car had a normal sequential shifter. Like I had to physically move the shifter like a motorcycle deal, and you have to lift enough shifts. And that motor, it was really easy to downshift clutchlessly, but not all motorcycles can do that. So, that one was really easy to do. But that was a blast. If I ran shorter gears than that, I think that car was faster, to be honest, than the Prince for the hill climb. But I was better prepared. I was mentally prepared. I made sure I bought new tires, stuff like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, Adam and I have been talking about trying to get involved with hill climb because we think it's a cool concept. And like you said, your autocross background, it works well with hill climb.
Yeah.
But we live in Iowa, which is pretty. It's not flat.
They have
but
more hills in Illinois.
Yeah. It's not. But it's
Just a
not.
little bit.
We don't have twisty roads though. That tends to be the issue.
Yeah, even if we have hills, they just go straight up and over them, or they cut into them. They don't go with them.
Yeah, they don't tend to kind of like the tail of the dragon. You're never going to find that in Iowa.
I bet you there's some roads close to the river
Yeah, I've been told if you get down along like Peoria and then our side of the river, there's some really good roads in and around there, but that's not really a part of the state I am
Well,
in.
in Illinois, by Chestnut Mountain, the road that goes to Chestnut Mountain is an amazing road. So it's in the Galena area.
Okay, that's not too
east
far
side
from
of
us.
Mississippi. That amazing. I don't think we could close it down to a hill climb there, but if they did,
That's the other big problem.
I would be there.
That's the other big problem is, okay, I found a road. Yeah, you're not going to close that. Don't even bother.
Yeah, we really don't think that Iowa would be too keen on us approaching them and saying, hey, this road's kind of cool. Can we close this down and race up and down it? No, we're going to have to take a hard pass on that. Thanks.
But the beauty of the county in North Carolina that does this is that, economically, tourism is their only thing. And they welcome us with open arms. I mean, every business has welcome hill climbers and things like that. And even though there's a lot of motorcycles that come there, that area too. I mean, there's a kind of mecca for motors and sports, Miata guys and S2000 guys and all that. But they really welcome us. I mean, they realize that we come and book motels and, I think it's a dry county, so we don't buy booze.
It's a bummer, isn't
but
it?
they eat at restaurants and stuff like that. I mean, the lady who runs the Chamber of Commerce is at all the events. I mean, they think it's significant.
Maybe we're just approaching this with the wrong attitude.
Maybe having someone like there's a town next to us that has an economic development bureau that works with the Chamber of Commerce, something like that.
Approaching them the right way and talking about how you're going to bring people in, how they're going to stay at hotels, how they're going to buy food, how they're going to
and it's not just the drivers. You've got wives.
Oh,
you've got crew people.
Absolutely.
You've got corner workers. They're going to stay someplace too.
Yeah.
Doing it from scratch though, it takes some organization because you don't need typically like a road race type corner workers that can handle fire bottles and
Flagging.
things like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not something we have to do in autocross. You don't flag. You just count cones.
Well, so like
move on.
in this situation, I think it was a little bit like they would red flag if there was a spin or something.
I suppose you don't need like passing flags.
Correct.
And stuff like that.
And you would get
in a hill
a
climb.
rerun, as I air quote there, if someone spun in front of you or something, like an autocross. Whereas in road racing, it's like, well,
Tough.
that happens.
Yeah,
Move on.
too bad. So for people that don't know, they when they send cars up the hill climb, basically everybody lines up at the start. They send you, they line the next guy up, and then there's like, what is it, a minute gap or something in that case, or maybe a little less.
It could be
than
like
that.
a minute.
Yeah.
It does vary by the speed of the car too.
Yeah,
But, and obviously the starter can't see anything, so they've got to have radio contact when they go by a certain thing.
Yeah, you
it might have
pass
been
station 3,
maybe a
send the
minute
next
or
car.
something. The only thing is that with a hill climb, it's hard to have a lot of cars on the hill because you have to get them back down. So you
true,
can't
yeah.
have any cars running when you're getting them down, and like in it. This was actually pretty steep. I mean, when I got to the top of the hill, I didn't start my engine. I just let my foot off the brake, and gravity pulled me all the way down the hill.
Oh, jeez.
It's significant. Gosh, it's such a gorgeous place. If you ever get a chance, it's a fun event, and it's a very beautiful part of the country. Right in the Smoky
That
Mountains.
is right. It is definitely on my bucket list of places to go and visit and take a car to. So yeah,
I'd love to do Pikes Peak. And
Yeah,
I've
good
got
luck.
a car that is now legal for Pikes Peak because my sports racer needed a little bit more cage, and I wasn't going to hack up a perfectly good sports racer.
Pikes
But
Peak has I'm sure they have a very stiff safety regulation.
Well, if you saw Jeremy Foley's crash a few years ago, some of their cage requirements are actually quite lax, to be honest.
Oh, really?
But I hear they're starting to crack down a little bit more. I mean, we are responsible for our own safety.
Yeah.
And I've seen some pictures of some of the cars that kind of got in, and they were like, Cusco cages or something, like really scary stuff.
Some
Considering what we
bolting
do.
stuff or something?
Now, for open wheelers, though, or open cockpit cars, they required, additional halo, like a front halo.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good, but I mean, I wasn't going to hack up, a car that I liked just for one event.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
But now that I have a tin top, door slammer with a real cage, I should be good to go.
I think that event is probably waiting line type of situation, isn't it, to get in?
Yeah, I guess I know this year they don't have quite as many entries. Like last couple years, there've been a lot of entries. So I'll give you a little bit of history of Pikes Peak. Back when it was dirt, it would kind of self-police itself. You guys that couldn't handle sliding across dirt and the inherent risk there probably didn't enter. But now that it's all asphalt, a lot of guys like me are going, I can run like a road race car, or, there's like street kind of cars in this event. And a lot more people will come out for this event. So now it's packed. Like, that's one of the issues, that they had too many people here the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've had a lot of problems with spectators placing too.
Well, I don't remember the spectator issues, but probably a lot like World Rally. But I guess, like, some people, weather is tough I guess in June or all summer long. Like, every afternoon there's usually like rain and snow. Unfortunately, it's just the way it works. At like 3 o'clock, humidity builds up and it can snow and rain almost every single day. So typically, everyone's on a mountain like at 3 in the morning, and when light cracks over, they start running. And they let the fast guys go first because the weather conditions are usually better in the morning, and then everybody else goes to the end. And like last few years, they've had to cut it short because of weather. Like last year, I think they only went halfway up the mountain for the second half of all the people. And sorry, this is what you got because this is what's safe. So, but autocrosser like Brienne Korn. She won Time Attack a few years ago in a WRX, and she's been back, I think, every year since, but hasn't been able to duplicate that success. But as I recall, she was out in the snow a couple years ago, the year she won it. And that was the year that she also won the Solo 2 National Championships. And I think she won a Rallycross National Championship, too.
That's a good year.
So, yeah.
It's a very good year.
Brienne from Texas, to give her some props.
Cool. What else you got, Adam?
I don't know.
Think of anything else? It's been a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah,
You've done a lot of really cool
fun.
things. So,
I guess I thought was kind of neat was like you see your team Skillicorn, but then you also see your Skillicorn for state rep. So you have a lot going on.
So yeah, I have a little bit going on. This March, I won a primary, and my current state representative is retiring. I wasn't his pick. Somebody else was. We've had a good relationship, and I kind of got involved in the political world maybe about 5 years ago. I ran for trustee in my town because I started doing a Freedom of Information Act on budgets and stuff like that, and putting my website. And there's a couple little things. Actually, I'm not wearing it right now, but I was wearing Honk If You Hate Red Light Camera shirt.
Nice.
They put a red light camera by my house, and it made me mad. So I started getting involved.
Okay.
And so I became a village trustee. And I worked on a campaign or two with someone I thought were good people. Illinois has got a lot of bad people, or a little bad politicians. Let's say.
Yep.
We have 13 million great people. We've got 150 some really bad politicians. So, so I ran a couple campaigns, and then all of a sudden, that was like the year after that was a redistricting year, where because of census they redistrict. Now Iowa, ironically, uses a computer-generated map for the redistricting. So people just get split up into their congressional districts and their state house districts and stuff. In Illinois, it's very gerrymandered. So what happened was the precinct that I live in got moved out of the the district I was in because the guy that we ran against, and we lost by like 207 votes, he was the co-chair of the redistricting committee, and he saw that my precinct performed really well for the guy who ran against him, so he moved my precinct out and into another district. And I had known that guy, the guy who ran in that district for a few years, and we had a couple of conversations. And it was I thought about running 4 years ago for office, and thought better of it. And but now this guy was retiring, and I've been involved, so I might as well. I think I can make a difference. So after this weekend, I'll be knocking on doors up until November. So
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I've spent a lot. The way my wife looks at it, because I haven't raced a lot last couple of years, is I've spent all my money I would spend on racing, on politicking, and it's unfortunate, but I'd rather have people who are committed to it too. You talk about money and politics and stuff, and you're not going to be able to stop people from trying to get their word out and get the message out. But it's nice to see people that have skin in the game themselves, and in a way sacrifice. I'm not, I'm just like you guys. I'm a really grassroots racer. Like, I can't afford to fix my car now.
Right.
Next year it'll run again, but it'll have to wait till next year.
Yep. So looking out for the greater good here. You're not just focused on your car.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect. I never thought about that, but having politicians that actually have some financial skin in the game too, and so making true sacrifices to be a representative of the people that you're supposed to be representing, because that's really what it's supposed to be about. So that's cool that you have approached it from that angle. and we won't dive into any other political discussions, i.e., presidential election or anything like that. But I just
You
know.
know, did Matt Farah, did he have his Trump helmet?
He's got a Trump helmet?
Yes, he does. Now, he had it for like 4 or 5 years before he ran.
Oh, before that.
You know, I actually have met Donald Trump a couple times.
Yeah.
And last spring, I heckled him, but I'm pretty right-leaning guy.
Sure.
But I had my guy in the race, and I heckled Donald, and then he told me I was fired. So
Were you entirely mad about
I was
that?
going to say I wouldn't be
No,
mad about
I
that
think
at all.
he's a funny guy, and
He's got a personality, that's for sure, and that works for him.
Yeah,
and
he's
we're
very
very, you know,
charismatic, if anything else.
we're in troubled times, and people are upset, and that you know, that shapes the discussion, unfortunately.
Yeah, and sometimes somebody that just comes in and shakes things up and is really confident about what they're saying, you know, that attracts people.
Sure.
We've said it before. You don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to be confident.
You just have to be
about
confident.
That's true. I can remember in college, we wanted there was a park bench we wanted in front of our we had this campus apartment or something, and it was the park bench was like right next to like the commons area or something, and I'm just like, I told a couple of my roommates, like, well, just act like you know what you're doing, and we walked right across the campus with this bench and put it right in front of our little apartment there, and I'm like, just because we looked like we knew what we were doing, we looked like we were working for him or something.
Yep.
And,
If you're confident and you look like you're supposed to be doing what you're doing and you're not being shifty about it, people don't ask questions.
We've been doing it all weekend. I'm not even sure we're supposed to be in the timing
We've
shot
strolled
right
into
now.
places we probably weren't supposed to be, and no one's batted an eye.
So have you gotten any cars?
Yeah, you guys got
Robbie
some
and I
cars.
rode in some of Jabez' friends' cars, which we really thank them for letting us that opportunity.
So what did you guys ride in?
Those
There were
Honda
a couple
Civics
of
for the
little
Ramblers.
these little EF hatches that are right here
Okay.
under the tower.
So I want to drive Adam Jabez's race car, his CRX STL
STL car?
SCCA race car.
Yeah, it's
I want to
pretty cool.
drive it really bad.
Yeah.
I
You
haven't
just
asked him yet, though. I
requested
should.
it because he actually does listen to this show, so
Yeah.
now he knows.
Yeah, so he'll hear
I
this.
think it's really cool. I mean, I kind of cut my teeth in CRXs and stuff, and
Yeah.
I remember one of the years I did the 10-hour enduro here. It was in a Honda CRX, and the awesome part was a brand new build by the guy who used to. He won ITA, which is World Race Improved Touring A, which is pretty much dominated by CRXs, and nowadays like CRXs and Miatas, but then just CRXs, and he won the ITA race on Saturday, the sprint race, and then in qualifying, I go out in the car and run a time 1.5 seconds faster. He was both mad, but also, very interested in the. I mean, and he only had single adjustable shocks, so we started playing with that a little bit. But I've always been very good at this track because it's very technical. I mean, again, I'm an autocrosser, so.
Yeah, I looked at. We've talked about this before, but I looked at a CRX pretty seriously. But I think the reason they're so expensive is the race tax. We talk about the drift tax, but I think there's a race tax for CRXs. If you find one that's not in terrible shape, you're going to pay for it.
Well, they're desirable and they are rare. An EF CRX would be a very desirable car, and if it's not rusted,
Yeah,
if you can keep it not rusted.
right.
No such thing as a not rusty early 90s Honda
I've seen a few
in Iowa.
Actually, Adam and I, we've met for the first time this event last year, even though we hang out in the same forum that shall not be named. But, we've known who each other are for a few years, but met him first time. And I remember this winter, I think I sent him a text. There was a really cool EF Civic, not a CRX, in like Florida or something. And it had a motor swap done to it, but it had all the right mods. It was like tastefully modded. And I remember talking to him and because it's tastefully modified, is that going to affect values? And he actually was pretty convinced that it'd have to be stone stock to be a collector. And that's actually why, and the guy was a little firm on the price. And I was like, if I can't drive it for 2 years and make some money, it's not the car I want.
Right.
That's kind of why I have this BMW M Coupe. It's really rare. You mentioned that color. I think the Dakar yellow with the black leather and a sunroof. There's only 21 in the United States.
It's super clean too. That car is clean.
It is. I mean, it's a driver. It's got a couple of nicks in the front and stuff, but nothing like you can't.
The interior looked good.
Yeah,
when I
interior
poked
is
my head
fresh.
in there, it looked really good.
It's got just over 100,000 miles on it, but the interior is fresh. So I'm trying to keep it there. Actually, I took the car wash this morning, and I was washing the wheels this afternoon when we were done today, and I'll have to wash them again tomorrow and stuff. But ideally that's a car that, granted, I don't drive it very much, stuff like that. But, hopefully I could flip that and, make a couple bucks or maybe a few more than a couple bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I couldn't think, I really think that those are probably on the upswing. I mean, those.
Well, there was one on Bring a Trailer this week. Now, it was 99, 1 year older than mine, but it was wrapper fresh, very low mile car that sold for $30,000.
Oof. Oh, wow. Man, I didn't think they were worth that.
So S54s, so the 01 and the 02s, I think is even rarer, but they have real low production numbers. Well, all of them are really low production numbers, but the S54, the E46 M3 motor, 315 horsepower, are going insane price wise right now. Like, if that car was, well, I'm not sure what colors are hot, but if it was an S54, it was an 01, it would be a $40,000 car.
I know a lot of people don't like it, but I'm a yellow guy, so I'm all about that.
So
that car
it's actually not my first choice, but has grown on me.
I just like things that are I like things that are a little bit flashy, but still kind of subtle. And yellow,
that's pretty fun. Give you an idea. In the last few weeks, I've driven two really flashy cars. That, and I pulled a giant elephant behind my truck for a parade. And both of those get a lot of looks and a lot of thumbs up.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I get it.
Cool. This has been awesome. You're a really interesting guy. I mean, seriously, you've done some cool stuff.
Like
you've done, we talked about motorcycle racing. You've done car racing. You've done autocross. You've done hill climb. You're running for office. I mean, you've done some really cool things. And we just appreciate you coming up here and chatting with us.
Thanks for having me. It was a joy. Maybe we can go to the go-kart track down the street and ask them to turn on the water sprinklers so we can run it wet. And
there we go.
I saw that.
Do
I was
some
like, we
drift carts.
Yeah. Oh, drift carts.
That'd
be awesome. So
a few years ago, we went there and we're all racers, and they're like, "You guys are racers? Can we turn the water on?" And we're like, "Absolutely."
Oh, so they did it, please.
Yeah, they did it for us, which was a blast.
That is awesome. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Greatly appreciate it. We'll keep. Hopefully we'll have a couple more episodes here, but we will catch you guys sometime. We're kind of off our regular schedule, but we'll catch you guys the next time we release an episode. Thanks for listening in.
Bye.